The galaxy was vast, silent, and full of secrets. For centuries, alien civilizations had spread across countless star systems, exploring, claiming, and fighting for control. Among these aliens, a particular fleet moved quietly, almost unnoticed, in a distant corner of space. They were confident, disciplined, and proud of their technology. They believed themselves unmatched, masters of strategy and firepower. The idea of humans being a threat had never seriously crossed their minds. Humans were supposed to be weak, primitive, and unorganized. That was what all intelligence reports had said. For years, the aliens had watched human systems from afar. They had sent small reconnaissance teams, unmanned drones, and stealth ships to gather information. Each time, they found nothing impressive. Human ships were smaller than the fleets of many alien races. Their weapons seemed less advanced, and their numbers were limited. Many alien officers laughed at the thought of humans ever challenging them. It was a mistake, but pride made them blind. The fleet moved like a predator across the dark expanse of space. Rows of sleek ships glimmered faintly against distant stars, each vessel carrying hundreds of trained soldiers, weapons ready, engines humming with power. Commanders stood on their bridge, monitoring sensors, issuing orders, and discussing the upcoming invasion. They were planning a strike against a human colony on the edge of a human-controlled sector. The colony was lightly defended, or so the reports said. To the aliens, it would be an easy victory, a demonstration of their dominance. Life on these ships was orderly and quiet. Alien crews went about their duties, confident in the routine, in the certainty that their mission would succeed. Engineers checked engines, weapon officers calibrated their energy cannons, and pilots ran through simulations. There was an unspoken understanding among the crews. Humans were insignificant. Many joked about how easy it would be to destroy the colony, imagining themselves returning home with stories of their triumph. But even in their confidence, a few officers could not shake off a strange feeling. One of them, a senior analyst, had noticed unusual patterns in human activity. Ships disappearing from one system and reappearing elsewhere without explanation. Colonies surviving attacks that should have wiped them out. Communications that suggested careful planning and coordination. The analyst had brought these observations to the commanders, but they were dismissed. Humans are primitive, one said. They have no hope against us. Forget the rumors. Focus on the mission. As the fleet approached the human sector, tension began to build, not because of fear, but because of excitement. The aliens were about to engage what they believed was an easy target. They were confident, but curiosity stirred quietly beneath the surface. What if the reports had missed something? What if humans were more clever than they had imagined? Most of the fleet ignored these thoughts. Pride was stronger than doubt. In the dark emptiness of space, the stars seemed indifferent to the fleet's presence. Yet in the distance, small blips began to appear on long-range sensors. Nothing significant at first, just tiny points of light moving in unusual ways. The officers paid little attention. It could be natural phenomena, they thought, or minor ships on routine missions. Still, the analyst felt a chill of unease. Something was off. Humans did not move like this. Their activity should have been predictable, easy to track, and easy to intercept. As hours passed, the fleet drew closer to the colony. Alien sensors picked up signs of human structures, settlements, and small defense systems. The images were clear, but nothing alarming. The colony was indeed lightly defended. The aliens smiled at what they believed was their assured victory. Fleet commanders ordered ships to hold formation, preparing to descend into attack. Energy weapons hummed as they warmed, missiles locked in their tubes, and soldiers checked their gear. The sense of inevitability filled the air. Victory felt certain. But even in this calm, the first seeds of doubt had been planted. The analyst watched the data closely, noticing patterns that made no sense. Ships seemed to vanish and reappear, movements that should have been impossible for human technology. Communications intercepted from the colony hinted at strategic planning far beyond what the aliens had expected. Every detail suggested that humans were observing the aliens too. The analyst shared the findings quietly, hoping to convince a commander, but the words were dismissed. "Prepare for battle," the commander said. "This mission will be over before it begins." Yet for the first time, the alien officers began to feel a subtle unease. They had never faced humans directly before. They had never seen their true power. Pride had blinded them, but curiosity and a faint sense of fear was starting to creep in. Even as the fleet moved confidently toward the colony, the analyst could not shake the feeling that something was waiting for them. A force they had never imagined. The fleet continued its silent journey across the void, unaware that the humans they were about to encounter were nothing like the reports had described. The calm before the storm was ending. The first glimpse of a human warship, when it finally appeared, would shatter the illusion of control the aliens had cherished for so long. But for now, the aliens prepared, confident and blind, marching unknowingly toward a moment that would change their perception of humanity forever. For years, the humans had been more than just observers to the galaxy. They had been survivors, builders, and fighters in ways the aliens could never fully understand. The alien fleet, moving confidently toward what they assumed would be an easy victory, had no idea how deeply wrong their assumptions were. Among the alien ranks, a few officers whispered doubts, but most laughed them away. They were certain humans were weak, that the humans' technology was primitive, and that their numbers were small. It was this very certainty that blinded them to the truth. The humans, however, were not simple. Even on distant colonies, far from the core worlds of their civilization, humans had ways of observing and protecting themselves that the aliens could never predict. Hidden sensors, subtle communications, and carefully designed defenses allowed them to see without being seen. Stories of their resilience had circulated among alien ranks, often dismissed as exaggeration or myth. But the humans had survived attacks that should have wiped them out. Their colonies had resisted forces many times their size. They had built ships that could appear where they were least expected. And while the aliens laughed at the thought of humans as a threat, they had underestimated a critical factor. Human ingenuity as the alien fleet drew closer to the human colony. A small group of officers began discussing these strange stories. One analyst, quiet but sharp, spoke up again. "Reports say humans are weak," they said, pointing at the screen. "But these anomalies, these patterns do not match a primitive species. They are deliberate. Someone is planning. Someone is watching." The commanders scoffed at the warning. "It is imagination," one said. "Stories of surviving attacks? That is luck. My fleet has never failed in similar missions. Humans are nothing. Prepare to strike." Still, the analyst's unease grew. There was something in the patterns of human activity that did not fit the expected logic. Colonies were built in places that seemed defenseless, but energy signatures suggested hidden power. Communications were carefully coded, and supply movements appeared unpredictable, as if they were learning from every observation. Every tiny detail suggested careful planning. And while the fleet moved forward, this quiet intelligence was invisible to most. The alien ships advanced like a wave across the darkness of space. Stars twinkled in the distance, indifferent to the events unfolding below. Inside the ships, alien crews performed their duties with routine precision. Weapons were checked, shields tested, and engines tuned for maximum speed. Soldiers and pilots practiced drills, each believing in the certainty of victory. Pride filled the corridors. Confidence was everywhere, but curiosity, and even a small hint of unease, lingered among a few officers. Meanwhile, humans on the colony were fully aware of the approaching threat. They did not panic, did not rush blindly into battle. Instead, they observed carefully, listened to distant sensors, and read the patterns of movement the aliens left in their wake. Every human crew member knew the stakes, yet they carried out their tasks with calm focus. Each human understood the value of preparation and surprise. Even the most inexperienced human on the colony was part of a system far more intricate than the aliens could imagine. The humans had learned from history conflicts, attacks, and invasions. They understood that strength alone was not enough. Strategy, observation, and timing were critical. Their ships were not just machines of destruction. They were tools of precision, designed to respond, adapt, and surprise. The human's ability to learn from every encounter, to adjust in real time, was a trait no alien had predicted. Back on the alien ships, some officers began to notice oddities in the data. Small readings on sensors, minor deviations in the predicted positions of human ships, and subtle changes in communication patterns puzzled them. These humans, they behaved differently than expected, one officer said quietly to a colleague. The colleague shrugged. Ignore it. It is probably an error in the sensors. Our mission is clear. Despite these reassurances, the feeling of something being wrong began to spread quietly among the fleet. The more they observed, the more inconsistencies they found. Ships that should have been stationary were not. Energy readings that should have been weak were stronger than expected. The aliens' maps and calculations, which had guided them so confidently, no longer fit perfectly with what they were seeing. On the human side, the colony prepared subtle defenses. Not overt, not visible to the aliens, but ready to respond. Humans built layers of strategy, each step designed to confuse, distract, or delay an enemy until a decisive move could be made. Their approach was calm, quiet, and deliberate. Unlike the aliens, humans understood that arrogance could be dangerous. Every soldier, every technician, every pilot worked in coordination, their actions interconnected in ways the aliens could not see. The alien commanders continued to dismiss the warnings. Pride was stronger than caution. We have faced weaker opponents and won, a commander said. We will face humans the same way. The sooner we strike, the sooner this is over. Orders were given, formations set, and weapons prepared for the attack. The fleet surged forward, confident and blind to the reality that humans had been studying them just as closely. Then, small anomalies began to escalate. A few alien ships reported unexpected energy signatures. Minor disturbances in their formation suggested interference they could not identify. At first, these were considered technical glitches, failures in equipment, or minor miscalculations. But the frequency and consistency of these anomalies could not be ignored. The analyst who had warned of human cunning pointed them out again. These are not glitches. Someone is controlling these movements. Someone is observing us. This is no accident. The commanders grew frustrated. Enough speculation, one said sharply. Prepare to engage. Any more hesitation is cowardice. We move forward as planned. Yet even as the orders were spoken, a small tension spread through the bridge. Officers who had always relied on certainty now felt an unfamiliar weight of doubt. Something was different. Something was coming that no one had predicted. Humans, meanwhile, watched the alien fleet with calm efficiency. They studied formations, identified weak points, and anticipated moves the aliens had not even considered. Their preparations were quiet but meticulous. Each human action was deliberate, each decision based on observation and experience. The humans' understanding of strategy and adaptation was growing in real time as the aliens approached dock. As the fleet drew closer, the quiet tension among alien officers increased. They still believed victory was certain, but an unspoken worry began to spread. Reports came in of strange readings, unusual activity from humans, and energy signals that did not match expectations. Yet the fleet continued forward, driven by pride, habit, and the belief that humans could not possibly pose a real threat. And so, the stage was set. The alien fleet, confident and unaware, moved steadily toward the human colony. Humans observed, prepared, and waited. The calm tension in space was almost electric. Both sides were aware of the other's presence, but only one side truly understood what was coming. The humans were ready for what the aliens could not even imagine. The myths about human resilience, ingenuity, and adaptability were about to be proven true. In that quiet darkness, the first signs of a storm were appearing. The alien fleet's confidence, once unshakable, was beginning to show cracks. And for the first time, some officers began to consider what the humans might actually be capable of. The humans were not what the aliens expected. They were something far more dangerous, far more intelligent, and far more prepared. The legends, the whispers, the anomalies, it all pointed to the same truth. And soon, the aliens would see it for themselves. The calm before the first encounter was ending. The humans, patient and observant, were ready to reveal the truth. And when the aliens finally caught their first real glimpse of a human warship, the story of arrogance, underestimation, and hidden power would reach a turning point no one could ignore. The alien fleet had traveled for countless light years, moving with confidence and purpose. Every ship hummed with power, every engine worked in perfect unison, and every soldier believed victory was inevitable. They had prepared for weeks, studied intelligence reports, and rehearsed countless battle strategies. They were certain that when the humans appeared, it would be a short, easy confrontation. Yet, even as they advanced, a quiet tension lingered among a few officers. The small anomalies they had noticed before were growing, subtle but impossible to ignore. Something in the human signals, patterns, and communications suggested intelligence, calculation, and planning far beyond what they had expected. Then it happened. Sensors on the lead ship picked up a massive energy reading in the distance. At first, officers assumed it was an error, a glitch in the system. But as the reading intensified, the shape of a ship began to emerge, a ship unlike any the aliens had ever seen. It was enormous, far larger than any human craft they had previously encountered. Its structure was angular yet fluid, perfectly designed for both speed and defense. Lights glimmered along its surface, but they were not simply decorative, they were strategic, indicators of energy flowing through defensive shields and advanced systems. The analysts on the bridge fell silent. The readings were off the charts. Weapons output, shield capacity, engine power, everything suggested technology that should not have existed in human hands. The officers exchanged uneasy glances. One spoke quietly, almost in disbelief. This cannot be human. Reports were wrong. They must have been wrong. The commander, a proud and experienced alien, waved off the concerns. Reports are correct, he said, his voice steady. Humans are weak. This ship may be larger than expected, but it cannot match our fleet. We will engage and destroy it, just like any other target. But the doubts had begun to spread. Other officers were murmuring quietly to each other, pointing out details on the sensors that did not add up. The human ship was not just large, it was intelligent in its positioning. It adjusted its shields, rotated sections of its hull to redirect energy, and emitted bursts of signals that seemed designed to confuse and mislead. Every move was deliberate, calculated, and precise. The aliens had never encountered an opponent that could think this way in real time. On the human side, the crew of the warship had already detected the approaching alien fleet. They had been monitoring sensor readings, analyzing movement patterns, and predicting the aliens' approach. Every human officer understood their role. Every action was coordinated. There was no panic, only calm observation and quiet preparation. Humans had learned that arrogance in an opponent could be turned into an advantage, and they intended to use it. The moment of first contact was tense and electric. The alien fleet moved into what they thought was an advantageous formation, confident in their ability to overwhelm a single human ship. But as they advanced, the humans acted. They did not attack immediately. They did not fire their weapons or charge into battle. Instead, they positioned themselves perfectly, placing the aliens in a range that exposed weaknesses the aliens had never predicted. The alien sensors began to register small explosions not from weapons fire, but from precision strikes that disabled minor systems on their ships. Energy pulses interfered with shields, engines, and communications. What should have been minor disturbances grew into serious problems. The aliens had expected to see a small, vulnerable human ship. Instead, they were encountering a warship that seemed aware of every move they made before they even made it. Confusion began to spread among the alien ranks. Officers barked orders, but the usual efficiency faltered. Communications were interrupted, systems failed unpredictably, and formations began to break. The human ship, calm and methodical, responded to every attack with strategies the aliens had never seen. Every maneuver was anticipatory. Every shot the humans fired disabled not just weapons, but critical infrastructure. Within minutes, the alien fleet realized that this was not a simple engagement. They were facing a threat far beyond their imagination. The commander tried to rally his fleet. Focus fire. Target the human ship's engines. We will destroy it, he shouted. But the humans had already anticipated this. Systems rotated, shields adjusted, and the alien attacks were deflected or rendered useless. Every strike the aliens launched seemed to be calculated to achieve nothing. The humans had turned the aliens' confidence against them, using it to expose weaknesses and create chaos. Some alien officers were frozen in disbelief. How can one ship do this? They whispered. It is impossible. Our fleet should be crushing it. The analyst who had warned of the humans' cunning finally spoke up, voice firm and urgent. I told you. We underestimated them. They are not primitive. They are not weak. They are extraordinary. We need to rethink our approach. But the commander refused to accept it. Impossible, he said. We are superior. There must be a mistake. Adjust the sensors. Prepare for full assault. We will destroy it. Pride and arrogance blinded him to the truth, even as the humans' warship continued to neutralize their attacks with calm precision. The humans, inside their ship, remained focused. They monitored every alien move, predicting formations, shield adjustments, and energy outputs. They were not reckless. Every maneuver was intentional. They had studied patterns, learned from prior encounters, and used their knowledge to manipulate the aliens' actions. Humans had always been adaptable, capable of learning and adjusting faster than their opponents. This was not mere chance. It was skill, planning, and instinct all working together. The alien fleet, once confident, now began to fracture. Ships collided with minor debris, engines overheated from miscalculated maneuvers, and panic spread among the crews. Soldiers who had expected an easy victory were now scrambling to respond to attacks they could not understand. Their confidence crumbled, replaced by fear, confusion, and a growing sense of doom. As the humans executed their strategy, they created opportunities to exploit weaknesses the aliens did not even know existed. Systems that had been trusted for centuries failed under precise pressure. Ships that had never been damaged were incapacitated within moments. The alien officers watched in horror as their technology, experience, and pride were rendered useless by a single human warship. The first glimpse of the human warship had shattered their illusions. The aliens realized, too late, that humans were not the primitive species they had assumed. Humans were dangerous, intelligent, and unpredictable. Every calculation, every strategy, every assumption the aliens had relied on was now proven wrong. For the first time, the alien commanders truly understood their situation. They were not facing a minor opponent. They were facing a force that could outthink, outmaneuver, and overpower them despite the odds. Fear, something unfamiliar to these disciplined officers, began to take root. The realization hit them fully. Their doom was no longer a possibility. It was imminent. And yet, amid the chaos, the humans remained calm. They had expected this. They had planned for arrogance and overconfidence. They had prepared for every tactic the aliens might use. They were not only defending, they were teaching a lesson about underestimation, about the consequences of pride, and about the true strength of humanity. The alien fleet now had no illusions left. The first encounter had revealed the terrifying truth. Humans were not just survivors. They were masters of strategy, resilience, and adaptation. And for the aliens, the shock of seeing the human warship in action marked a turning point they would never forget. The calm before the real battle was over. The aliens had seen the power of humanity for the first time. They had witnessed a force that could not be easily defeated, a species capable of turning confidence into vulnerability and arrogance into defeat. The first glimpse had ended, but its impact would last forever. The alien fleet was in chaos. What had started as confidence and precision had turned into confusion and panic. The first glimpse of the human warship had already shaken them. But now, as the humans began to act with calculated aggression, the scale of their underestimation became clear. What the aliens had thought would be an easy engagement was now a nightmare. From the bridge of the lead alien ship, officers shouted orders in rapid succession. Form the attack line. Concentrate fire on their shields. Engage the secondary weapons. But the commands had little effect. Human countermeasures were precise and swift. The warship moved as if it anticipated every action, redirecting energy, deflecting attacks, and neutralizing threats before they could even take effect. Every alien move that had once guaranteed victory now seemed to fall into carefully laid traps. The human crew, calm and collected, monitored the fleet. Every maneuver of the alien ships, every fluctuation in energy output, every tactical adjustment was noted, analyzed, and countered. Humans had always been adaptive, quick to learn, and inventive under pressure. They did not rely on sheer strength alone. They relied on intelligence, prediction, and strategy. The aliens, confident in their technological superiority, had never encountered an opponent like this. Explosions shook the alien fleet as the humans struck with surgical precision. Not just weapons fire, but carefully timed energy pulses disrupted shields, disabled engines, and severed communications. Ships that had been deemed invincible faltered and drifted, unable to respond effectively. Alien crews scrambled to repair systems, reroute power, and coordinate attacks, but every action was anticipated. Every plan was countered. Panic began to spread. Officers who had once been calm, composed, and confident now questioned every decision. How is this possible? One whispered, "We have never faced such coordination, such speed, such precision." Another shouted, "This cannot be. Our calculations were perfect. They should not be able to do this." But the truth was undeniable. The humans were not only surviving, they were controlling the flow of battle. The lead commander, proud and experienced, struggled to maintain control. He had faced countless battles, conquered countless worlds, and commanded fleets that crushed their enemies with ease. Yet here, in the presence of one human warship, his confidence faltered. He barked orders, demanded results, and tried to rally his forces, but the human ship moved with uncanny intelligence. It seemed to know where every alien ship would be, how every weapon would fire, and how to exploit the smallest weakness. The alien analyst who had warned of human ingenuity before finally spoke with urgency. "We underestimated them," they said. "They are not primitive. They are not weak. They are exceptional. Every action we take is predicted and countered. Our strategy is failing because we are thinking like ourselves. Humans do not fight like us. They fight differently, and they are already adapting faster than we can." The commander shook his head, refusing to accept it. "Impossible," he said. "Our fleet is superior. We have numbers. We have technology. There is no reason we should be losing." But the evidence was everywhere. Ships were disabled faster than repairs could be made. Energy shields flickered and failed. Engines overheated under pressure. Even the most advanced weapons were neutralized with precision. The humans had turned every advantage. The aliens believed they had into a liability. Fear began to creep in among the alien soldiers. They had trained for years, prepared for countless scenarios, and yet nothing had prepared them for this. They watched in disbelief as their ships faltered, their systems failed, and their plans collapsed under the control of a single human warship. The confidence that had carried them through the galaxy was gone, replaced by panic, desperation, and a growing sense of doom. The humans, however, remained calm. They had expected this reaction. They had anticipated arrogance and overconfidence, and they had designed their strategy to exploit it. Every movement, every strike, every adjustment was deliberate. They did not seek unnecessary destruction. They sought control, precision, and the dismantling of the alien fleet's confidence. Their actions were surgical, turning chaos into advantage and confusion into victory. In the alien fleet, communication breakdowns spread like wildfire. Orders went unheeded, sensors failed to provide accurate readings, and ships drifted out of formation. Pilots struggled to respond to attacks that seemed to come from nowhere. Engineers tried to stabilize systems, but their efforts were constantly thwarted. The realization was dawning. The humans were not just defending, they were dominating. The alien fleet had believed that sheer firepower and numbers could overwhelm the humans. They had assumed that technology alone was enough. But humans were proving that adaptability, intelligence, and strategy could outmatch raw strength. Every action of the alien fleet was countered, every plan anticipated, and every advantage turned against them. The balance of power, long assumed to be in the aliens' favor, had shifted dramatically. Within the chaos, some officers began to argue. "We should retreat," one said. "We cannot win. Their tactics are beyond comprehension." Another replied, "Retreat is cowardice. We fight as ordered." But even as the arguments continued, more evidence of defeat accumulated. Ships were disabled, energy readings fluctuated uncontrollably, and small skirmishes were turning into catastrophic failures. The humans' dominance was undeniable. Fear became widespread. Alien soldiers, who had once been confident, who had believed in the invincibility of their fleet, now questioned every action. They saw the humans' precision, their ability to predict, and their adaptability. They realized that everything they had counted on, their numbers, their weapons, their formations, was being rendered useless by a single, intelligent, and resourceful opponent. The lead commander finally understood the truth, though he resisted it. We cannot defeat them like this," he admitted reluctantly. "Every attack is countered. Every system is neutralized. We are losing control. We need a new plan." But it was too late. The humans had already set the pace, controlled the battlefield, and exposed the vulnerabilities of the alien fleet. The realization of doom was complete. Amid the chaos, the humans executed the final stages of their initial plan. They targeted the most critical ships first, using precise strikes to destabilize the fleet further. Alien ships were forced to divert energy to shields, leaving weapons offline. Systems that had been considered reliable failed under sustained pressure. Pilots struggled to respond to attacks that seemed to anticipate their every move. The humans had transformed the battlefield into a controlled environment where the aliens could no longer dominate. The aliens could see the truth now. Their confidence, their pride, and their technology, all of it, had failed against the humans' adaptability and intelligence. The realization was bitter and undeniable. Humans were not primitive, weak, or disorganized. They were exceptional. They were strategic, resourceful, and resilient in ways the aliens had never imagined. Panic, fear, and disbelief spread through the fleet. Officers shouted in frustration. Soldiers scrambled to respond, and the once confident formations collapsed. The humans had exposed the limits of the alien arrogance. They had shown that victory was not guaranteed, that intelligence could outmatch firepower, and that underestimation could lead to near-certain defeat. And yet, the humans remained calm. They did not gloat. They did not panic. They did not overextend. They simply continued to act with precision, patience, and strategy. They had anticipated this moment, and they were ready for the next phase of battle. The aliens, for the first time in their history, were facing a species that refused to be underestimated, a force that could turn arrogance into vulnerability, and a power that could not be defeated by conventional means. By the time the initial chaos had settled, the aliens had come to one undeniable conclusion. They had misjudged humanity completely. Every assumption, every report, every plan they had relied on was wrong. And in that moment, as the humans continued to assert control, the alien fleet understood a truth that would haunt them forever. Their doom was not a possibility. It was now inevitable. Unless they could find a way to escape, regroup, and rethink everything they thought they knew about the galaxy and the species they had dismissed as weak, the humans, calm and composed, continued their silent observation, ready for the next move. They had proven their superiority without unnecessary destruction, showing that intelligence, adaptability, and strategy were mightier than sheer force. And for the aliens, the lesson was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were a force that could change the course of a battle, a war, or perhaps even the balance of power in the galaxy. The realization of doom had fully arrived. The aliens had faced many challenges, many enemies, and many battles. But nothing had prepared them for this. Humans, a species they had dismissed, had shown them the limits of arrogance, the power of adaptability, and the terrifying intelligence of a species that refused to be conquered. The alien fleet, once confident and disciplined, was now in utter disarray. Panic had taken hold in every ship. Officers shouted orders that were impossible to follow, and soldiers struggled to keep up with the chaos. Systems that were supposed to work flawlessly failed under pressure. Engines overheated, shields flickered, and weapons misfired. It was the first time many of these aliens had felt genuine fear in battle, and it spread like wildfire. The humans, meanwhile, remained calm, observing and controlling every movement of the alien fleet. Humans had prepared for this exact moment. Every strike, every maneuver, every defensive measure was part of a plan designed to exploit the arrogance and overconfidence of their enemies. They didn't need to rush. They didn't need to waste resources. Their movements were deliberate, calculated, and precise. Each human crew member knew their role, and every system on the warship functioned in perfect harmony with the strategy. The first human strikes had already destabilized the alien fleet, but the humans didn't stop there. They began targeting critical systems on the largest alien vessels' engines, weapons arrays, and communication hubs. The aliens tried to retaliate, but their efforts were anticipated at every turn. The humans had studied alien tactics for decades, understanding their likely strategies, patterns, and weaknesses. They were always one step ahead. As alien ships faltered, the humans adapted in real time. Energy shields shifted to deflect incoming fire. Engines adjusted course to avoid collisions, and weapon systems were recalibrated to strike with maximum efficiency. The humans were not just responding, they were dictating the flow of battle. The alien fleet, despite its numbers and technology, was being systematically dismantled. On the bridges of alien ships, confusion and fear reigned. Officers who had once believed in inevitable victory now questioned everything. "Why can't we hit them?" One cried, "Our weapons should overwhelm them." Another whispered, "It's impossible. Every attack is neutralized before it lands. They are too fast, too smart." The lead commander tried to rally his forces, but even he could see that traditional tactics were failing. The humans had turned their arrogance and discipline against them, using it to create chaos and vulnerability. The human warship moved with a quiet precision that unsettled even the most experienced alien officers. It avoided predictable patterns, rotated shields to minimize exposure, and used energy pulses to disable weapons at exactly the right moment. Even small alien vessels, attempting to escape or regroup, were intercepted with minimal effort. Every action by the humans seemed to anticipate the aliens' next move, leaving the alien fleet scrambling for answers. Amid the chaos, some alien officers realized the truth. "They are not just reacting," one said quietly. "They are controlling the battle. Every move we make seems to fit into their plan. We are being led into traps we cannot see." Others nodded in silent agreement, though fear kept them from speaking aloud. The realization spread. Humans were not merely strong or clever, they were extraordinary, capable of outthinking a fleet many times their size. As the battle escalated, the humans executed maneuvers that were almost surgical in their precision. They created openings in the alien lines, forcing ships to collide or overextend. Alien energy shields failed under carefully timed pressure, and engines overloaded from sudden shifts in course. Every strike was intentional, every adjustment calculated. The humans did not act recklessly. They acted with patience, intelligence, and confidence. The aliens tried to adapt, but their responses were always one step behind. Communication breakdowns and system failures worsened the situation. Ships that had been considered the backbone of the fleet were disabled first, leaving the remaining vessels vulnerable. Alien soldiers, who had trained for years and believed in the superiority of their technology, found themselves powerless against a single human warship. Fear became the dominant force in their ranks, replacing confidence and pride. Humans on the warship observed the disarray with calm efficiency. They had anticipated this level of chaos and had prepared strategies to exploit it further. Small strikes on vulnerable targets created cascading failures throughout the alien fleet. Engines overloaded, shields collapsed, and weapon systems became useless. Alien commanders tried desperately to regroup, but the humans anticipated every attempt to restore order. The aliens' pride, which had carried them through countless battles, was now their greatest vulnerability. They had underestimated humans, assuming weakness and lack of organization. That misjudgment had allowed the humans to dictate the flow of the battle, using strategy, adaptability, and intelligence as their weapons. Every failure the aliens experienced was a lesson they had not prepared for, and every lesson came too late. In the midst of the fight, some alien officers attempted bold maneuvers to regain control. Squadrons of ships broke formation, attempting flanking attacks or concentrated fire. But the humans had already calculated these possibilities. Every move was countered with precision. Alien ships became trapped in patterns that left them exposed, and systems failed exactly when needed to maximize disruption. The humans had turned overconfidence into a weapon against their enemies. As the battle dragged on, alien morale deteriorated. Soldiers who had been confident and disciplined now acted out of fear. Orders were miscommunicated or ignored. Small skirmishes spiraled into uncontrollable chaos. The humans, calm and deliberate, continued to dismantle the fleet systematically. Every move reinforced the same lesson. The aliens were outmatched not by sheer firepower, but by the humans' intelligence, adaptability, and unity of purpose. The human warship, massive and imposing, moved like a conductor directing an orchestra. Every strike, every defensive adjustment, every calculation flowed seamlessly. Alien ships that had expected to dominate found themselves reacting desperately, always one step behind. Every victory they had anticipated slipped further away, replaced by the cold realization that humans were unlike any enemy they had faced. Despite the chaos, the humans maintained discipline. They did not overextend, they did not waste energy, and they did not rush. Every action was intentional. They exploited the aliens' mistakes, amplified the confusion, and controlled the battlefield without unnecessary destruction. In doing so, they turned a numerical disadvantage into strategic dominance. The aliens, witnessing their fleet crumble, began to understand a terrifying truth. Humans were not only capable of surviving superior technology, they were capable of mastering it, predicting it, and turning it against their opponents. Every assumption about weakness, every expectation of inferiority had been shattered. The humans' calm, deliberate actions had revealed the full scope of their strength. As the battle reached its peak, alien commanders faced the impossible. Systems were failing, soldiers were panicked, and ships were disabled at an alarming rate. The humans had anticipated every possible move, controlled every engagement, and forced the aliens into positions of vulnerability and fear. The fleet that had once been confident, disciplined, and proud now faced the stark reality of their impending defeat. In that moment, the aliens realized the cost of underestimating a species. They had counted on arrogance, assumed superiority, and relied on their technology to guarantee victory. The humans, through strategy, intelligence, and calm execution, had turned those assumptions against them. Every strike, every defensive maneuver, and every calculated decision revealed the true power of human adaptability and resilience. The realization of doom was complete. The alien fleet, once proud and confident, was fractured, disabled, and demoralized. The humans had not merely survived, they had dominated. The battle had become a lesson in underestimation, arrogance, and the consequences of dismissing an opponent. Humans, patient and deliberate, had proven that strength was not measured in numbers or technology alone, but in intelligence, strategy, and unity of purpose. Even in the chaos, the humans remained calm. They continued to observe, adapt, and strike where necessary. They had controlled the battle from the very beginning, exploiting the aliens' weaknesses while minimizing risk. The aliens, now desperate and disoriented, had no clear path to recovery. Every attempt to regroup was anticipated, every strategy countered, and every move used against them. The aliens' defeat, though not yet complete, was inevitable. The humans had shown the full extent of their capabilities without unnecessary force, demonstrating a mastery of strategy, prediction, and control. The fleet that had once believed itself invincible now understood the terrifying truth. Humans were not just survivors, they were masters of adaptation and intelligence, capable of turning the odds against even the most prepared enemy. As the battle continued, it became clear that the humans were setting the terms, dictating the pace, and controlling every engagement. The aliens had misjudged their opponent, and the consequences were becoming painfully apparent. The humans' calm precision had dismantled pride, destroyed confidence, and exposed vulnerability in ways the aliens could never have anticipated. By the end of the engagement, the aliens were forced to confront the reality that humans were a species unlike any they had ever faced. Every expectation, every assumption, every calculation had been overturned. The humans had demonstrated that intelligence, adaptability, and strategic thinking could overcome raw strength. N. The battlefield was quiet now, though the silence was heavy with tension. The alien fleet, once confident and proud, had been forced to retreat. Ships drifted slowly, engines damaged or offline, shields flickering, and weapons disabled. The humans had not destroyed everything. This was not an act of rage, but of precision. They had controlled the engagement from start to finish, dismantling the aliens' power without unnecessary destruction. The aliens were stunned. Officers struggled to understand what had happened. Some blamed technical failures. Others blamed strategy or poor communication. But deep down, every officer understood the truth. They had been outmatched, not by numbers, not by strength, but by intelligence, adaptability, and discipline. Humans had done something the aliens had not expected. They had taught a lesson in strategy and restraint, showing that the mind could be more powerful than raw power. On the bridges of the surviving alien ships, there was a strange mix of fear and awe. Soldiers and officers who had been confident in victory now felt small and vulnerable. Many whispered among themselves, realizing that their arrogance had been their greatest weakness. They had counted on humans being weak, disorganized, and easily defeated. Instead, humans had proven to be patient, disciplined, and far more capable than any reports had suggested. The humans, aboard their warship, observed the retreating fleet calmly. There was no celebration, no unnecessary bravado. Their mission had been to defend, to demonstrate capability, and to control the battle. Every action had been calculated, every move deliberate. Humans understood the value of patience and intelligence. They had achieved their objective without unnecessary loss or destruction, showing not just power, but wisdom. As the alien fleet limped away, damaged and humiliated, officers began to discuss what had gone wrong. "We underestimated them," one said quietly. "Every assumption we made about humans was wrong. They are not weak. They are not primitive. They are exceptional." Another officer nodded, voice trembling. "We relied on arrogance and numbers. They relied on strategy and intelligence. We lost because we did not see them for what they are." Even in retreat, the humans maintained vigilance. They did not allow the aliens to regroup too easily. Their sensors tracked movement, anticipating every potential tactic and every possible threat. Their approach was measured, careful, and deliberate. They had proven that intelligence and strategy could control the battlefield, even against superior technology, and numbers. Among the alien survivors, morale was shattered. Soldiers who had expected an easy victory now faced a reality they could hardly accept. Systems were damaged, weapons destroyed, and formations broken. Yet it was not only physical damage that had hurt them. The psychological blow, the realization that humans were far more capable than they had imagined, was profound. The aliens had faced many challenges before, but never a species like this. The human strategy had been simple in appearance, but brilliant in execution. They had anticipated arrogance, adapted in real time, and controlled every aspect of the engagement. They had turned the aliens' assumptions into traps and used discipline, observation, and intelligence to dismantle a fleet that had once seemed unstoppable. It was a lesson in patience, strategy, and understanding one's opponent. As the dust of battle settled, alien commanders called councils to analyze what had happened. They pored over reports, studied sensor readings, and replayed every maneuver. The conclusion was unanimous. Humans were unlike any species they had faced. They could adapt faster than the aliens could predict, anticipate moves before they happened, and turn overconfidence into vulnerability. Every calculation, every assumption had been wrong. The humans had shown that survival and victory depended not on brute force alone, but on the mind, the strategy, and the will to anticipate and adapt. Meanwhile, humans returned to their colony, calm and composed. Systems were repaired, crews debriefed, and preparations made for any future threats. Humans had demonstrated strength, intelligence, and control without overextending themselves. They had proven a point. Victory did not require arrogance or reckless force. It required patience, calculation, and adaptability. The humans' actions would become a legend in the galaxy, a warning to any who underestimated them in the future. Among alien fleets, the story of the encounter spread quickly. Survivors recounted the calm precision of the humans, their ability to predict and counter every move, and the way a single warship had controlled an entire fleet. Scholars and commanders debated what they had witnessed, unable to deny the humans' extraordinary capabilities. Fear, respect, and awe mixed together as they analyzed their defeat. They had underestimated a species, and the cost had been staggering. Some alien officers, reflecting privately, realized that the human strength was more than technology. It was their ability to think, adapt, and remain calm under pressure. It was the unity of purpose, the discipline, and the foresight that made them formidable. Every calculation, every strike, every defense had been executed with intelligence and control. The humans had shown that power was not measured in numbers or weapons alone, but in understanding, preparation, and strategic thought. In human colonies, life returned to normal, but the impact of the battle was felt deeply. Humans had survived. Against overwhelming odds, not through brute force, but through intelligence, unity, and calm control. The story of the engagement would be studied for generations, a testament to their capabilities and a warning to any who might underestimate them in the future. The aliens, now retreating, had a difficult lesson to accept. Their pride had been shattered, their confidence broken, and their assumptions proven wrong. They had learned that humans were not just another species. They were a force that could change the outcome of battles, wars, and even the balance of power in the galaxy. Every officer, every soldier, every analyst would carry the memory of that encounter, knowing that the humans had redefined what it meant to be strong, capable, and intelligent. As the alien fleet disappeared into the distance, the humans remained vigilant. They had won the battle, but they knew the galaxy was full of unknown threats. They had demonstrated that intelligence, strategy, and adaptability could overcome raw power, and they would continue to prepare for whatever challenges the universe might present. Their calm, calculated approach had turned what could have been chaos into victory, and they had done it without unnecessary destruction. The aftermath was quiet, but profound. Alien scholars debated what they had seen, commanders planned for future encounters, and soldiers who had faced humans would never underestimate them again. The encounter had changed perceptions, rewritten expectations, and forced a species to acknowledge the limits of arrogance and assumptions. Humans had demonstrated something that could not be ignored. They were not merely survivors. They were masters of strategy, adaptability, and intelligence. Even long after the battle, the humans' actions resonated across the galaxy. They had turned the tide without reckless force, had shown that patience and calculation could overcome technology and numbers, and had reminded all who observed them that underestimating a species could be fatal. The aliens had learned this lesson the hard way, but humans had proven it with clarity, precision, and calm mastery. The human warship, once a single point in a distant system, had become a symbol, not of fear or aggression, but of what intelligence, adaptability, and strategic thought could achieve. They had controlled the battle, dismantled a superior fleet, and forced the aliens to confront the reality of human capability. In doing so, they had reshaped the galaxy's understanding of humanity. The aliens' retreat was not just a withdrawal. It was an acknowledgement of a new reality. Humans were a species that could not be underestimated, a force that combined intelligence, adaptability, and calm execution in ways that even the most advanced civilizations struggled to counter. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary, and the consequences would ripple through time and space. In the end, humans returned to their lives, calm and composed, ready for the next challenge. They had shown what it meant to fight with intelligence, strategy, and precision. They had proven that power was not measured by numbers alone, but by thought, preparation, and adaptability. And in doing so, they had changed the galaxy's perception of humanity forever. The aliens, left to ponder their defeat, would never forget the lesson. Humans were no ordinary species. They were capable of reshaping outcomes, controlling battles, and surviving against overwhelming odds. And for the first time in their history, the aliens understood that arrogance, underestimation, and overconfidence could be fatal mistakes. The galaxy itself had witnessed the emergence of a new standard. Humans, through calm strategy, intelligence, and adaptability, had demonstrated a power that went far beyond technology or numbers. They had shown that true strength came from the mind, from preparation, and from the ability to control the flow of events. And as the stars stretched endlessly beyond, the humans' victory stood as a reminder to all: underestimate humanity at your own peril.